The wind stitched ice along the porch rail like a hymn hastily sewn. I stood with 2 photo boxes in my arms and heard the sentence delivered as politely as a receipt. "You're not allowed in the house until you apologize," June said. No raised voice, no slammed door. Just a verdict already printed, folded, and handed to me. I glanced at my son. Ethan stared at the floorboards as if the wood grain had suddenly become a secret map. His arms were folded. He said nothing. "I brought the boxes," I said, "from the attic. You said you wanted to go through them." "Our things," June cut in, bright as a blade. "You went through our things." I looked down at the cartons, Walter's old army uniform, baby pictures of Ethan and Ellie, my mother's letters stored in my attic for 40 years. No, our house, I suppose. 10 years ago, when Ethan started paying the property taxes, and we put the title in both names for simplicity. I hadn't thought much of it then. Walter had just been buried. Ethan said it would make things easier, the kind of easier that doesn't feel like betrayal until it's too late. "I wasn't snooping," I said quietly. "I was preserving the uniform. Walter kept it clean for 40 years. I thought Ellie might want it." June laughed, short, breathy, polite. "Ellie barely remembers your husband. She was 6. Don't act like the guardian of family history because you hoard dusty boxes." Ethan still didn't look up. I nudged a box forward with the toe of my shoe. "I'll go," I said, "but I'm not apologizing for remembering the people who loved me." "Then you're not welcome," June replied, folding her arms tighter. The street was summer quiet, that tired lull August gets before school returns. I stepped off the porch, knees creaking like old stairs, and walked to the car still parked in the same driveway I'd pulled into for 4 decades, under the same maple tree Walter and I planted when Ethan turned 10. I didn't cry. Not when I backed out. Not when I passed the mailbox I used to dress in garland for Christmas. Not even when I saw the hydrangeas Walter planted blooming blue along the fence. I didn't cry. Something hard and patient simply shifted inside me. By the time I turned onto the main road, I'd already decided they wouldn't have to worry about barring me from the house. By evening, it wouldn't be their house to bar. The kitchen felt wrong the moment I stepped into my own back door, too neat, too quiet, like a stage set, built to resemble a life instead of hold one. I set the boxes on the table and stood there a moment, hands gripping the edges, unsure whether to lift, to push away, or to scream into the cardboard. I did none of it. I sat in the chair nearest the window, the one that still creaked the way Walter's knees used to. Outside, the yard hadn't changed the untrimmed lavender, the patch of grass where Ethan and his father built the treehouse that outlived its wooden limbs and purpose. I reached into a box and drew a photograph, Ethan at 10 smiling so wide you'd think he'd run out of room for sorrow. One sock up, one sock down, my handwriting on the back, Ethan's birthday. Chocolate cake. Windy day. I kept these things not because they were valuable, but because they were proof. Proof! I had been here cooking, paying bills, patching holes, staying through fever, slammed doors, and bad news. The kettle hissed. I set a match to the burner. The flame flickered like a question I refused to dodge. When Walter died, it was sudden. The spoon clattered against the bowl. His head fell forward and the room went cold in a way grief makes permanent. After people came and went, casseroles appeared and were scraped clean. Ethan helped with the bank forms, the insurance, the taxes. He was good then. Or maybe I needed him to be. June arrived later, beautiful, effortless, the kind who never forgot a birthday and always forgot to listen. From the beginning, she treated me like a leftover from an older version of Ethan she meant to update. I swallowed, remarks kept out of the way, did not mention the mural Walter painted across Ellie's nursery, even when she rolled new paint right over it. I thought kindness would be enough, but kindness isn't a contract. It buys nothing in writing. It doesn't even keep a door unlocked. The spoon struck the cup king, a thin, precise note that pierced the room. The clock on the wall counted tick, tock, tick, tock, each beat like a knock from the past. I carried my coffee down the hall and let the house speak. The floorboards sighed. The linen curtains rustled. The old refrigerator purred like a tired animal keeping watch. My fingertips found the first scratch on the cabinet edge, the diagonal scar Ethan gave the wood with a cast iron pan when he was 10. Back then it fell thud, he went pale, and I rubbed beeswax across the wound. It's nothing, I said. Now I traced it cool at the edges, warm beneath, and felt that old nothing split open into a new crack. Some things were something, and I had pretended otherwise for too long. A round burn mark on the table, the coin-sized print Walter left set in a hot pot down KJT. I'll sand it out, he had said. He didn't live long enough. I set my cup atop that circle. Steam rose and breathed like a chest, learning the rhythm again, and I heard Walter's laugh hovering between chocolate and pine. I wanted to tell him I sanded it, Walter. I sanded until I wore myself thin. But the clock cut in with a single tick as if to say enough. On the pantry door jamb, the pencil marks that measured heights through the years hid beneath fresh paint, but in the slant of afternoon they rose like braille. Me 121 134 m 170 mean cedars, memory refusing to die, only waiting for the lamp to angle its way. My phone buzzed. Bzzz. A text from Ethan. Mom, don't make this bigger. I'll talk to Jade. 7 words light as ash, but when they landed, they dented the surface of my life like hail. I saw again the drill biting the lock. Trrrrrr, Jade upright like a rule, and my son still as a post. Silence has shape. It has hands to push a mother off her own porch and feet that won't take a single step toward her. I didn't answer. I stirred once. Keng. The spoon's note rounded the room like a bell calling decisions to their pews. I opened a drawer and pulled out tape and blue pen. I made labels large enough to forbid confusion. Uncool, keep the cast iron pot. Walter's alarm clock, my mother's crocheted cloth, the 1988 birthday cards, the burn on the table, the pencil marks under paint. Give the mirror bright stemware never once used, the live laugh love frame that never learned a single verb. Carry no more. Corrected grandma mid-sentence, dinners eaten by silence. Apologize if you want to come in, if you want to come. My phone buzzed again. Carter from the recorder's office, an attempted electronic deed, filing from an unfamiliar IP. I've flagged and frozen it, he said. A second buzz. Nora revocations filed. Trust established, accounts locked. Any family agreement they slide under your nose is void unless it comes through me, she wrote. I pressed my palms to the table right on the burn Walter made. We will fix this place, Marty. We will fill it with our lives, he had promised on a spring and day in 1981. Linoleum, peeling me, holding a paper bag with canned soup and cheap wine. Him crouched with a hammer. Love, it turns out, wasn't fireworks for us. It was a turned screw, the smell of hinge oil, a line hidden in a drawer that read, praise Martha every morning, don't forget. The refrigerator purred, the light steadied, the kettle ceased its hiss, the house's breathing shifted from lulling me to sleep to shaking me awake. Climaxes rarely arrive with a bang. They enter on the backs of sounds so small you could swear nothing happened until everything speaks at once. I pulled my leather notebook close. The page rasped under the nib. I wrote in slow square letters, sell the house on my terms, freeze everything by law. No one uses my son as a key to my life. From now on, my silence will have architecture. I set down the pen. The spoon tapped the cup. Keng, not an alarm anymore, a signal. In that one ring, gathered the drill, the polite condition at the door, the polite theft and tidy transactions, the old scratches that refused to sink. Inside that small metal circle, I heard Walter say, light knows its way home. and for the first time my voice didn't tremble when I answered, "So do I." I stood. The chair scraped a clean brief skid. I slid the suitcase from under the bed. The latch snapped tack a metronome kicking into a new tempo. I folded my mother's cloth. I wrapped Walter's clock. I lifted the cast iron pot heavy as a length of youth. Each thing landed in the keep box with a soft thump, the sound a heart makes when it settles back into the correct chest. By the time I returned to the kitchen, the light had crawled past the table edge. Steam from the cup thinned. The clock kept faithful time. The wind lifted the chimes on the porch, laying a single silver note like a wave signature. Climax had not come to break me. It had come to crystallize me. I raised the cup warm, not scalded, and drank. Bitterness sat down first. Sweetness followed like a friend who refuses to be late. I exhaled. Steam from my breath and steam from the cup braided once and parted, each going his own way. I spoke softly, not to the house, but to myself. It's done. The spoon chimed once more keng, as if signing his name at the end of a chapter. I smiled. I had listened, and this time I answered. Morning, I laid a thin honey glaze over the stove. I tilted the kettle. Water hissed, flame flickered like a question that already knew its answer. Coffee rose in slow vapors, thin ribbons winding up, loosening, vanishing into the quiet. The wall clock counted tick-tock, each beat pressing the air flatter. I let the spoon touch porcelain keng, a bright pin of sound that drew a clean circle around the moment. My phone buzzed. Carter from the recorder's office. A heads up, someone tried an electronic deed filing on your property from an unfamiliar IP. I flagged and frozen it pending verification. Another Nora revocations filed. Trust established. I'm locking every sub-account and line of credit tied to your name. Any family agreement is void unless it comes through me. The kettle quieted as if it too were listening. I set the cup on the coin-sized burn mark Walter left years ago with a too-hot pot. Steam climbed and breathed like a chest relearning tempo. Structure, Walter would say, tapping a knuckle on wood. I breathed to his word structure and drew the leather notebook close. Paper rasped softly under the nib. A knock, 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 knock. Not Donna's cheerful rhythm. A hurried, squared knock. I opened the door. Ethan to the left, Jade to the right. Jackets speaking in whispers of nylon rustle as they stepped inside. Just a quick chat, Ethan said, voice low. For peace, Jade added, smiling narrowly as a ruler. She slid a thick envelope across the table. A family agreement, and so things don't get messy. The clock kept time. The spoon on the saucer gave a tiny accidental keng. I pulled the papers near. Fresh ink smell. On page 3, small as ants, quitclaim. On 7, power of attorney durable. At the end, my name was already typed above the signature line. Why is my name pre-printed on a document from your friend's law office, I asked. To save time, Jade said without blinking, it's just technical alignment. My phone buzzed again, Carter on speaker. Confirming the attempted filing matches the timestamp on that packet you're holding. We've locked the queue. Jade's chair gave a short scrape. Glitches happen, she said, too bright. I laid my blue pen across the margin and looked at Ethan. Did glitches also change the locks? I heard the drill yesterday. Ethan's eyes flicked down. Jade's smile thinned. Security, she said. If you cooperate, no one needs to escalate. Another Nora joined the line, voice calm as cold glass. Mrs. Parker has revoked every prior authorization, frozen all linked accounts, and filed notice with the recorder. Any signature today outside my office is non-binding. And yes, your attempted deed. It's sitting under a red flag. The kitchen seemed to lean a degree toward the table. Outside, a faint wind tapped the porch chime, laying one silver syllable. Ethan swallowed. Mom, this is just to make things easy. Easy is when the doors aren't drilled in front of a mother, I said. Easy is when a son doesn't stand still. Jade nudged the packet back toward me. Sign you get new keys, a monthly stipend. Done. The clock struck a longer tick. The spoon answered with a small, decisive keng. My phone flashed, Caroline on video. Apologies for intruding. I have a cash offer, no contingencies. Buyers want the house as is. They even asked to keep the burn mark and the 410 light on your table. We need your call within 24 hours. The porch chime gave 2 quick notes of leng keng as if to underline it. Jade straightened. You don't have the right. I set Nora's notary seal on the wood cop. The sound was round and final. I do, I said, by law. Ethan blurted softer than fear. I opened a HELOC on the co-title. Penalties are climbing? Jay said it was temporary. Nora already closed. A line opened on a forged authority lands in the fraud lane. The recorder's hearing is scheduled. Jade stood so fast the chair bit the floor rat. You're tearing your family apart. I'm mending the seam you cut. I set palms on the table right over Walter's burn, and I'm asking my son to stand. Donna's knuckles tapped the glass knock. Need a witness, Martha, she called. I nodded. The wind slid a single chime through the doorway, leng like a closing parenthesis. I slid a green envelope forward. Notice of no contact in mediation terms. 2 choice, I said, letting the clock drop 1 beat between each sign, and we meet under cameras for mediation, financial counseling, repayment plan. Or I file for a protective order and deliver the fraud packet to the DA. Jade's laugh snapped dry. You wouldn't. An email popped, attempted deed filing flagged, officer assigned. I turned the screen toward them. I already did. Silence fell, the kind with edges. Ethan looked at the line where his name would go. His mouth trembled once, then set. I'll sign, he said. The pen spoke brio against paper. His strokes were neat obedient. Donna breathed in who, and the porch chime answered with a soft, congratulating leng. Jay grabbed her bag. I'll call my lawyer, I said, and tell the locksmith the certified letter said trespass. The door clicked. Cash. Wind slipped in. The coffee steam shivered once like a string plucked to full amplitude, then went still. The clock rang the hour teng, a round beat of sound landing inside the old burn mark like a period. Ethan handed the pen back. I'm sorry, I stood still, Mom. I didn't hug. I didn't preach. I nodded, giving silence its true job. At last, a hinge oiled and set. Another buzz. Caroline sent the PDF offer. The corner caught the light like an exit sign. I lifted the spoon and touched the cup keng. Not a warning. A seal. The kitchen had heard us. The conference room felt like a quiet aquarium, frosted glass slate carpet lights humming the way moths do when they forget to land. I sat with my palms flat on the warm edge of the oak table and listened to the machines breathe. Nora slid a folder toward me. Shh. We start with revocation, she said, voice steady as a level. Anything anyone waved under your nose, powers proxies. Family agreements, we unwind them by the book. Carter from the recorder's office opened his thin briefcase. He spoke without hurry. We placed a red flag on your parcel in the county queue. Any electronic deed attempt from an unfamiliar IP hits a wall. No more surprises. The printer in the corner woke. Chit and sent out the first page. The smell of fresh toner cut the room like a clean blade. Nora stamped the top right corner thock, and the ink bled a thin halo bright as a brake light. Next, she went on fanning the pages. We seat an irrevocable trust. Income for you, protections from anyone treating you like a wallet. Successor trustee name. No signatures outside this room will matter. I sign. The nib touched paper script and ran smooth, bold, thin, bold, like a breath climbing stairs, then stepping onto a landing. Carter leaned in. Matches your 2011 specimen, he murmured, even the tiny tremor in the tail of your R. The notary embosser, Bitkichak, and left a raised seal that swelled under my fingertip like a vertebra clicking back into place. Nora's round seal followed thump, a red ring you could not unsay. About the locks, I said, and the word put a small chill on the glass. Already noted, Carter replied, flipping to a new exhibit, F. Video of the drill at your door, time-stamped, logged with the attempted deed filing. Patterns matter. Patterns speak. He handed me a slim green set, no contact in mediation terms. If they want to talk family, they can do it here. Cameras witnesses his calendar. Another sheet came off the printer, chit. Nora tapped it into alignment tac. This is your affidavit. Facts only. But keep your sounds, she added quietly, as if she knew how my memory worked. The law likes details that breathe. So I wrote, the drill at the door, trrrrrr. The wind through the chimes, leng. The spoon on porcelain, keng. The clock striking the hour. Ting a round beat of time, falling into the old burn mark. Pages dried in a neat stack. The copier sighed. Across the glass, silhouettes passed, and thin pencils of strangers walking a hallway that was not invited to this life. Donna, slipped in coat, dusted with thawing snow that dotted the wool like eighth notes. Need a witness? She asked. Her pen clicked, tick, and she signed with the tidy pride of someone who keeps tomatoes and secrets with equal care. Nora gathered the packet shaft and cinched it with a brass clip-clack. Recorder's hearing is on the calendar. Fraud attempt is formally challenged, trust recorded, accounts frozen. From here on, everything under the sun sits in our file. My phone buzzed once. Caroline Cash offered no contingencies. Buyers asked to keep the burn ring on your table and to photograph the 410 light. I know that matters. I let the message cool on the glass, like a footprint in dew. Last piece, Nora said, laying down a single blueback page. Notice to locksmith and the trespass letter. Certified. They don't turn your doorknob without meeting this paper first. I pressed my thumb to the edge of the stack. Paper has a temperature today. It was body warm, a sort of earned heat. Behind the glass, the hallway clock ticked, tick, tock, catching its breath before the hour. When it landed, Ting the note rang through metalwood ink and me a small clear circle no one could step outside of. Carter stood. I'll walk this to recording, he said. You'll see. Pending. Recorded pop on your portal. His briefcase closed snapped like a cuff around a loose intention. Go home for the 4. Nora added, smiling with only her eyes. Let the house sign one last time with light. We shook hands, skim paper stamp seal in that order. The printer slept again. The lights kept their hush. When I stepped into the corridor, the frosted pane behind me held a pale version of my outline, smaller, sharper hole. I walked toward the stairwell, a folder breathing under my arm, listening to the soft music of things that had finally been put in the right places. Shelf pages, thock sealed, tack clip, ting hour. Outside wind combed the street and set a lone chime, moving leng. The sound didn't ask a question, it answered one. I walked the house the way a camera learns, a room slow patient refusing to blink. The clock in the kitchen kept time, tick, tock, as if it were stitching minutes into the seam of the day. Steam climbed from my cup and unspooled into the air. The spoon touched porcelain king, a small ring that drew a neat circle around what was still mine to name. The first mark waited where it always had a diagonal scar on the cabinet lip, the one Ethan gave the wood with a cast iron pan at 10. Back then I rubbed beeswax across it and said nothing. Today my fingertip found the cool edge and the warmer center and admitted, This was something. On the oak table, the coin-sized burn Walter left with a hot pot, Keat, sat like a dark moon. He promised to sand it out. He didn't live long enough. I set my cup right there. The steam breathed like a chest fine in tempo again. And in that breath, Walter laughed, the way pine and chocolate laughed together. Down the hallway, paint tried to forget pencil marks. Afternoon light unhid them numbers rising like Braille 4. FT1 4 at 5 at 7. Memory had not died. It had only waited for the lamp to angle right. A thread on the old runner had come loose the winter Ellie learned to jump 2 steps at a time. I never trimmed it. I liked how it trailed one thin river refusing to join the braid. In the front room, the window rattled one pane on windy days, a polite complaint. The radiator answered with its usual hush. Together they made winter bearable, a duet of effort and heat. The pantry latch still said tisk if you closed it too fast. The coat closet held a breath of cedar from a block. I rubbed there every Christmas. The mail slot had its own percussion clack-clack that once woke Walter from a nap and made him claim the world was sending us applause. In the back bedroom, a hairline crack crossed 2 tiles and stopped exactly at the corner like a thought that decided not to say the unkind ending. On the nursery wall, if you stood at an angle only, I knew you could see the place where June rolled new paint over Walter's mural, a gentle stub and overlap of field lost under a storm of beige. By the sink, the faucet's cold side needed a nudge left and right, tiny choreography my hands remembered, even when my mind wandered. Under the sink, the lemon oil smell that means someone kept trying. Outside, the porch swing chain sang 3 quick notes. When you sat, ching, 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 and then it held you. The brass knob on the front door always met my palm like a winter handshake, honest, unadorned, cold, before it warmed. I kept moving the way you keep reading a letter, written in the handwriting of someone you miss. Past the laundry door that sighed past the little chip in the baseboard shaped like a comma, past the light switch that clicked snap a fraction too loud. Every flaw was a place the house had chosen to speak. At 410, the kitchen poured its old magic. A sheet of gold slid across the floor and climbed the table to kiss the burn ring. Dust brightened, hovered, and let go. I stood inside that small cathedral of light and heard the clock release the hour teng, a round, clean bead dropping into wood. Not a eulogy, a benediction. I labeled it in my head the way I've labeled jars for 40 years, keeping me the burn. The pencil marks the stairs tack, the windows rear, the mail slots applause. Give to the next hands the keys, the quirks, the exact way the faucet forgives. A too hard turn. Carry no more rooms that require apology to enter. I traced the cabinet scar once more, then lifted my cup. The spoon chimed keng, not an alarm, now a seal. Outside the porch, chime answered with a single silver leng. The house had finished telling its part. I had learned it by heart, and that was enough to take with me. The house held its breath the way a stage holds a second before a curtain lifts. I set the kettle on low, not to brew, just to let the room hum. Steam braided up and loosened. The clock pressed tick-tock into the paint. On the table, I rested my palm over the coin-sized burn Walter left. Warmth gathered under bone. A car door thudded outside. Whoomp. Footsteps on the walk. The porch chime let go a single silver syllable leng. Ethan came in first, shoulders squared like a man braced against weather. Jade followed precise, a folder tucked tight to her ribs. Nylon whispered swish when she turned. Mom Ethan began, voice rough with sleep he hadn't earned. Mrs. Parker Jade cut in thin smile in place. We're here for a reasonable path forward. I slid 2 chairs out. Wood feet spoke scritch. No one sat. Jade put the folder down. Thup. If we can agree in-house, there's no need for escalation. She fanned documents glossy too clean. This is a stipend and new keys, predictable schedules. We all respect boundaries. The house held its breath the way a stage holds the second before a curtain lifts. I set the kettle on low, not to brew, just to let the room hum. Steam braided up and loosened. The clock pressed tick-tock into the paint. On the table, I rested my palm over the coin-sized burn. Walter left. Warmth gathered under bone. A car door thudded outside. Whump! Footsteps on the walk. The porch chime let go a single silver syllable, leng. Ethan came in first, shoulders squared like a man braced against weather. Jade followed, precise, a folder tucked tight to her ribs. Nylon whispered swish when she turned. Mom Ethan began, voice rough with sleep he hadn't earned. Mrs. Parker Jade cut in thin, smile in place. We're here for a reasonable path forward. I slid 2 chairs out. Wood feet spoke scritch. No one sat. Jade put the folder down. Thup. If we can agree in-house, there's no need for escalation. She fanned documents glossy too clean. This is a stipend, new keys, predictable schedules. We all respect boundaries. Already closed, forged authority. Recorder's hearing is scheduled. Ethan, if you cooperate, we keep you in mediation and education, not court. The porch chime threaded the air, leng keng, 2 soft beads of metal. Mom, Ethan tried again, and the word was the smallest he'd ever sounded. I was wrong. I stood still. You're gonna stand, then you're gonna walk, I said, palm firm on Walter's burn. You'll meet with debt counseling, sign restitution, and stop letting other people write your life in pencil over my pen. Jade slid the glossy pages closer with a nail script. Or we drag this through court and you look like a vindictive matriarch. Or I said, we don't drag anything, we record. Law likes verbs that leave footprints. Donna's knuckles wrapped the glass cock. Need a witness. Martha, yes, I said without turning. The door breathed. Cold air stitched the room and made the coffee steam jump, once then lie flat. Ethan reached for my blue pen. His hand shook, then steadied. He signed the no contact in mediation terms letters, clean obedient. The nib made a soft rew against the paper. Ink set like a promise cooling. Jade gathered her bag. Victory spun into anger so quickly, it squeaked rat. You'll regret this. I slid a certified letter toward her. Notice to locksmith trespass. Tell your locksmith the next drill meets a deputy. She left a draft of perfume that failed to stick to wood. The door clicked cash. The chime almost kindly gave one last leng. Ethan sat. He looked as if the chair might reject him. It didn't. I'm sorry. He said, not the kind that asked to be absolved, the kind that asked to begin. Then begin, I said. At 6, financial literacy. Donna will drive you if your car pretends to forget the way. He nodded. The house exhaled. The fridge hummed. The clock ticked as slow sewing. The spoon cooled on porcelain. The phone buzzed. Biz Caroline again. We can close fast. Funding tomorrow. I sent back a single word. Proceed. At 4, tin light unrolled itself across the kitchen floor, climbed the leg of the table, and kissed the burn. Dust brightened and let go. I let the spoon speak once king, and in that small ring, I heard 3 things threaten to win the law, the light, and me. The day had chosen its ending. I chose mine. Night dropped over the kitchen as if someone flipped a heavy blanket upside down. The refrigerator purred. The clock went tick-tock like a slow sewing needle. The warm yellow stove light held the wooden tabletop with its round burn mark in a soft arm. I poured boiling water into the filter cone. Coffee steam rose in thin ribbons, looped the light, then dissolved like a sigh held back. Phone buzzes. A short clipped beep. Carter silent alert. Attempted ATM withdrawal at the inner city station 2107. Decline. I set the cup down. The spoon inside trembled keng very softly like a bell striking a single letter. Bzz again, recorder's office. Notice of attempted filing, same unknown IP, repeating. File on hold. Wind slapped across the porch. The wind chime gave 2 cold notes, leng keng, sliding past the glass with a low rasp, like someone failing a lock. I cupped the mug in both hands, heat pressed into finger bones. Beside it, Nora's folder still lay open. Irrevocable trust revocation notices sent thunk, snap, slap. The noon sound still clinging to the paper's edge. In my head, Walter smiled with his eyes. Structure, Marty. I nodded to no one. Structure. Knock, knock. 2 taps at the door. Not Donna's rhythm. Hers is a cheerful song. Beat. This was hesitation, standing close while wanting to hide. I tapped the door camera. Ethan, a lone coat, zipped 2 high breath, steaming white. I popped the lock tack. Cold wind came in like a scold. Ethan stood in the kitchen, his gaze brushing the burn ring on the table, then sliding away. Mom, I just signed the mediation terms, he said, setting the page down, thumping, still bleeding at the feet of the letters. Jade left. The spoon in the cup chimed another note higher. I didn't touch his shoulder. You need a lawyer and debt counseling. Nora set it up, I said. You're not staying here tonight. I don't open the door to let fear back into this house. Ethan nodded. His throat swallowed dry gulp. I know. I'm scared. Good. Fear in the right place is the beginning of respect, I said, voice flat as the tabletop. Tomorrow, 8 a.m., Nora's office, 10 o'clock debt counseling. The coffee here is done for you. Phone, psst, Nora. Threat letter from Jade's partner demands cease and desist, claims elder abuse. I responded with exhibits AF locksmith, video strange IP emails, bank alerts, police call log. I tilted the screen toward Ethan. His neck drew back as if pricked by a pin. The wind chime gave a thin lunged sound that pierced 2 panes of glass and still felt like metal. Mom, Ethan said, I'm sorry for standing still. I set a fingertip on the table's burn where Walter once made a mistake and apologized with a single spoon. Keng, I hear you, I said. And I'll believe by action, not by words. Ethan nodded again. His shoes whispered root-reet on the floor as he backed toward the door like someone afraid to knock over one more sound in this kitchen. He'd barely reached the porch when my phone beezed Carter calling direct. You'll want this at the same 2107, a request to open a card at Sunrise Liquors. That's one of our flagged cash turn points. Patrol is en route. I thanked him in my head, not for luck, because the structure had finally engaged the right latch. The door clicked cash behind Ethan. I stayed with the clock and the coffee steam. The refrigerator purred. The light trembled very slightly like eyelids about to close. I lifted my pen and wrote in the leather notebook, escrow opens tomorrow. Deposit tonight. Ethan, no overnight here. Go straight Nora counseling repayment plan. Jade, no contact. Log every threat letter. Forward to police case. Bzz, bzz, bzz. 3 messages tumbled in like hail on a tin roof. Caroline Ernest, money and buyers will keep the scratches. Requesting more photos of the 410 light on the table. Police dispatch call logged with Sunrise Liquors. Case Pernar sent by email. Donna Jade's at the head of the block phone to ear siren just wailed far off. Want me to roll video? The wind chimeling came 3 times wind, kicking the porch like someone out of patience. I slid the bolt catch clear crisp, not a threat. One last bzzz. Nora sent template for meeting at the office cameras and witnesses. If Jade wants to say family, we say it in the conference room. I dimmed the lights, leaving only the stove lamp warm gold circling a patch just big enough to breathe. The clock's tick-tock shifted to a slower meter like a guide, easing speed for a narrow bridge. The coffee steamed thin, the chocolate note stepped back to make room for warm wood. I laid my palm on the table, gliding past the cabinet scratch, the round burn, the pencil hash marks, under paint standing together, none shouldering the other aside. Near midnight. The city struck the hour teng. From far away, a soft thump on the porch, an envelope slid through the mail slot. I picked it up, demand letter, heavy stock, hard type. I set it beneath Nora's bound exhibits. I didn't tear it. Not from fear, because the law likes paper intact. I poured more water into the cup. The spoon touched Keng, a thin note falling into the night, neat and enough. The phone brightened, then went dark. Other people's bandwidth could no longer borrow my breath. Before lights out, I stood at the kitchen door looking toward the porch. Wind still there, snow still falling, the wind chime still leng whenever the gust decided to speak up. I smiled, not from gloating, but from recognizing that a climax can be polite. It arrives by the phone's bees, the chimes leng, the clock's ting, and the bolt's catch. 4 small sounds arranged into a lock and score. I closed the notebook, morning escrow. Noon, Nora meeting on camera. Afternoon, Donna witness. Evening, sign offer. My finger stroked the cover. The leather was dry warm, the edge slightly raised like a healed scar. I whispered to Walter just one word. Small, neat, exactly in place. Done. Then I turned off the lights. The clock kept tick-tock. The kitchen stayed warm, the house kept breathing, and in the dark, just before the door settled, the wind chime sent one last note into the room, leng, as if signing its name beneath a decision that had chosen its road. Morning wrapped the street in a thin veil of mist, like someone blowing milky smoke across a row of brick houses. Martha set my hand on the notebook cover, my thumb landing exactly on the leather's central tendon. The kitchen clock went tick-tock evenly. At the half-minute mark, the second hand hesitated for half a beat, then kept going, an inconspicuous private sigh. Nora's office glowed like a quiet aquarium. Frosted glass, dark wood table, the notary seals on a brass tray lying still like cool charcoal. Carter was already there, opening a thin briefcase, white paper showing a cream edge. Escrow is open. Earnest money landed last night, Carter said, setting a stack of documents down with a measured thump. Recorder confirms the red flag stays. The attempted filing is now under investigation. Nora pulled her chair back with the faintest screech and spread the files as if laying a cloth over the table. Your grant deed sign here, blue ink. The revocation sign again so we can pin it to the county record. The trust fingerprint, the last page. I turned the fountain pen. The nib touched paper with a small rew, then slid. Green-blue ink ran in a thick line, like my heartbeat just reset to a moderate meter. At the final hook of the letter, M, the paper gave a tiny rasp, the shortest shuff, like someone quietly folding away a bad intention. Carter leaned in. Signature matches the 2011 specimen. No one can forge this tremor in the tail of your R. He smiled. The light pinned a small white fleck on his frame. Nora snapped the crimper. The raised seal swelled under my fingertip like a vertebra clicking back into place. Then a round red stamp thocked, the ink beating at the rim, a faint tang touching the tip of my tongue. I heard the conference room clock go tang the full hour. The beat of sound fell between 2 sheets like punctuation. Nora's phone bees. Carolyn says buyers request permission to come photograph the 410 sunlight today. They want to add that ray to their House Has Lived album. Nora looked up. Do we permit it? I nodded. He'll keep the house where the light touches first. The door opened with a soft woof. Donna stepped in, coat sprinkled with melting snow dotting her shoulders like round notes. I'll witness, she said, setting her pen on the table with a small clack. I smiled, the kind of small, deep smile that feels like placing an extra pawn to guard a clean row. The notice of no contact and mediation slid over. Ethan had signed it last night. I touched the tail of the H in my son's name. The ink was dry, but I still saw a faint tremor at the end, the hand of someone both afraid and resolved. Nora clipped it to the exhibit snap, a brisk final file edge sound. Knock, knock. 2 beats. Caroline peered in with a drawing tube. The original offer just arrived, she said. They asked me to pass along a handwritten card. We promised not to cover the scratching. The card tilted under the light metallic ink glinting green, the same shade as a dress I wore in 1985. I signed 3 more places. Each stroke a little lever, lifting the house out of muddy water. On the final signature, my hand didn't shake. The pen moved in one clean run, the period round as a peppercorn dropping onto the grain. Carter tapped submit the digital instruction, clicked. On the screen, statuses flipped. Pending. Recorded like green streetlights joining end to end. Legal layer done, he said. Any strange move hits a brick wall now. My phone buys. Recorder's office hearing on the forged file scheduled for Friday afternoon. Your evidence is sufficient. I passed it to Nora. She nodded. Good. We speak in paper? Another thick envelope. Escrow. I marked a small sign beside each fee tap the pen, knocking the margin like a metronome. Donna counted with me lips, moving without sound, eyes quickly moist. When we finished, she touched the back of my hand, her palm's warmth seeping through my skin, calming the printer's rrrr chit as it spooled copies in the corner. Right then, the outer glass door rasped a long line. Someone's shadow paused behind the frosted pane. The hallway wind chime gave a thin leng. Someone opened the outer door. Nora's phone, bees, second cease and desist. Same template. We ignore. Nora flicked her wrist as if brushing a stray hair off the shoulder of her jacket. Your turn, Nora said, laying a final slim set before me. Affidavit, short narrative of events. Write it in your voice, no rhetoric. Just truth. Plus the sounds you remember. I breathed in new paper ink, warm wood. I wrote, lock change die trrrrrr of the drill leng wind chime king spoon tang full hour. Conference day. Reunib raise. Seal crackle thock of the stamp. Alert night phone biz the glass rasp bolt cash. My hand was round low, unhurried, a structured breath. When I set the pen down, the room clock ting, wrote said again another hour. We all kept quiet for half a beat, listening to the metal note fall full and go out. Nora gathered the file, chef, clip, click. The seal rested again like a smooth stone underwater. Home by 4:10 for the sunlight. Caroline reminded One Eye, closing in a small wink. I stood. The chair slid back with a clean scrit. Carter handed me a plastic folder. Holding the copies, the cool edge slid past my knuckles like a tame fish. Outside wind skimmed the street. Crunchy snow broke crook beneath my heels. Far off, the church practiced the phrase, ting, ting. For the half hour, I tightened my grip on the folder's handle and felt something like a bolt sliding perfectly into its keep all the cogs meshing. Back in the kitchen, my own clock ticked close to 4:09. I drew out a chair and set both hands on the tabletop, the round burn spot warmer than the wood around it, like an old coal wrapped in ash. Sunlight crept over the sill, a golden thread, then settled exactly on that circle like an old friend finding the right chair. The coffee I poured pillowed on the rise and fall of that light. Phone bzz. Caroline sent a photo, 410 light. Buyers say, leave it as is. Another came Ethan, outside the debt counselor's office, hands woven, head bowed. His text, I'm starting. I lifted the spoon and let it touch the cup king. One neat round note. The climax stayed behind. Before me was the steady rhythm of paperwork, the sun right on time, a signature that does not shake. I whispered, not a declaration, just a line of work. Keep going. Afternoon sifted a thin light through the maple canopy, breaking into little gold shards like granulated sugar scattered on the street. I stood in the kitchen and set the whole ring of keys on the wooden table front door, back door garage, the cupboard under the stairs. The metal loops touched leng softly, then stilled. Caroline arrived right on time with the buyers. Mr. Ray, once a firefighter, and Mrs. June, a school nurse. Donna waited on the porch, a small notebook tucked under her arm to witness. Outside, the salt truck crept by, tires rasped on the ice. Inside, the kitchen clock went tick-tock, waiting for 4:10. We'll keep every scratch, June said, her fingertip barely resting on the coin-sized burn. And that odd little keng the spoon makes when it lands here if we can. I smiled. What? That sound isn't stored in the spoon. It lives right here. I set the spoon down, Keng. One neat, warm note, the kitchen signature. Ray looked up, eyes briefly wet. The house has lived, he said, with the sanded voice of a man who once spoke over smoke and sirens. 4, said 10. Sunlight crept off the sill like a thread of gold and settled dead center on the burn. Dust hung, glittered, then let go. June lifted an analog camera tash, one frame, no extra words. Caroline placed their handwritten card before me. We promised not to cover the scratches. The green metallic ink trembled in the light as if it were breathing. I handed the key ring to Ray. Metal clicked in his palm, lock, catch, then lay quiet like a fish slipped back into water. I'm leaving the furnace notes, the mowing schedule, and a slip Walter wrote, praise Martha every morning. You can swap Martha for each other's names. All three of them laughed softly. Donna dotted her pen and signed as witness the nib tapping tack. We took one last loop the hallway with pencil marks under paint, the carpet corner where Ellie loosened a single fringe. At 7, the cupboard that goes cash if you pull too fast. On the middle stair, I tapped with my toe tack a proud nail. Don't fix it if you like the house reminding you of itself. At the door, the porch chime gave 2 light notes. Leng, keng, a small wind enough to speak. I turned once more. The kitchen cupped its gold like a warm palm. The fridge purred. The clock kept its steady tick-tock. I whispered, not for them, for the house alone. Thank you. The door closed cash. The key ring in Ray's hand answered with the faintest leng as if replying. I stepped down the stoop. Snow crackled under my soles, rack, and in my chest rose the same feeling as when Nora's crimper pressed the raised seal, everything set cleanly into its groove. Ms. Alvarez, the cottage owner, waited for me by the white-painted picket fence. Locks were changed this morning, she said, handing over a single key. The shaft polished smooth along the center groove. I turned it till the lock caught sweetly. The door gave a soft woof and breathed out pine linen and a hint of sun-dried soap. The bamboo floor murmured a gentle creak. The window looked out on a wild patch of rosemary. Sea wind slipped through a neighbor's wind chime, let go one short note, leng, and fell silent. I set the suitcase down, thumped the room's hollow, answered like a small drum, kind not threatening, simply waiting to be filled. I poured the water I'd brought into the kettle and set it on the gas. A thin blue flame sizzled. The kettle low rumbled, then whistled up like someone about to tell a story. I washed a porcelain cup with a chip at the rim. The chip followed me here because it's my morning's palm line. Steam fogged the glass. With my finger, I wrote one small word on it, anew. The letters vanished, but the intention stayed. The window was ajar. I reached out and snipped a few rosemary sprigs. The sap was green and crisp, the herb's dark scent like an instruction breathed deep. I tied a slim ribbon, set the bundle in a small glass jar on the sill. Afternoon light slanted through. The needle leaves flashed at each tip like accent marks on a staff. Phone buzzes a photo of Ethan at debt counseling, back straighter, eyes up. A short text, I'm relearning how to stand. I replied, good. Stand first, then walk. Another BZ Nora hearing scheduled. Escrow says funding tomorrow. Sleep well tonight, she wrote. I opened the leather notebook. No more columns for keep, let go, not coming. On a fresh page, I wrote 4 lines, each one word in bold morning brew coffee. Open the window, count 3 deep breaths. Noon, write 3 lines of truth, no adjectives. Afternoon, step into the garden, touch soil, smell rosemary. Night, turn off the phone before the full hour chime. The kettle peaked, I lifted it down. Steam fanned like a thin flower. The spoon touched the cup king, and in the empty room the metal note carried clear, rounder with no old sounds pushing in. I sipped, the bitter set on the tongue. Sweetness arrived along the spine, warmth moved into bone. Outside a far church bell dropped a single late teng. The sea wind shifted, bringing a faint thread of salt. I drew the wicker chair into the sun patch and sat. It gave one thin rit and settled. On the sill, rosemary shimmered. In the glass, my reflection tightened, not smaller, just no longer crowded. I opened a small box of old cards, kept only a few from Walter. One he wrote the year we moved, the first time light knows the way home. I stood it against the rosemary jar, and seeing the youthful tremor of his hand made mine steady at this age. A bird skimmed across. Its shadow brushed the wall like a soft stroke of a calligraphy brush. I set the cup down. The spoon chimed again, keng signing the first afternoon with a familiar sound. The little clock I'd brought went tick-tock, unhurried. I closed my eyes not to hide, but to choose what to hear. Wind salt, the spoon's fine metal, and the green herb scent standing still like a milepost. When I opened them, the sun had slipped another handspan. The cottage said nothing grand. It simply breathed steady and enough. I smiled. The new home had chosen me back exactly the way living houses do, with warm light on the sill and a bundle of rosemary, always willing to lean into the wind. Morning in the cottage opens with a thin seam of light, a golden thread stitched into the edge of the curtain. I light the stove. The blue flame skates in a neat line. Warmth hums low, then steam blooms at the kettle's mouth like a flower of vapor. I the porcelain cup with the fine hairline crack. Warm water rizzles the glaze, gives a tiny ting under my thumb. I pour coffee. The spoon touches the cup king, a round metallic note clear, in a room with nothing extra. Phone bzzz. Caroline funding received. Escrow closes at noon. I nod to myself. The small clock goes tick-tock, as if nodding along. Second bzzz. Nora County hearing stays on calendar. Your file is beautiful. I take the first sip. The bitter settles on the tongue. The sweet rises behind the neck. The warmth moves into the chest. Sea wind moves through the rosemary on the sill. The needle leaves whisper like someone saying, "Breathe deep." I open the leather notebook. Pages chef soft, the smell of new pulp touches my nose. On the first page of New Life, I write, "Buy pink salt." It's a small desk lamp swapped to warm bulbs. Post a daily appointment, 4:10 p.m. Meet the light. 3 lines of truth per day, no adjectives. A letter thunks under the door bank envelope, closing statement, heavy stock, crisp black ink. I skim it, my pen taps the table edge, tack with each fee line while far off the church lets a singleton fall into the salted air. I file it in a plastic sleeve. The cool edge slides past my knuckles like a tame fish. Ms. Alvarez knocks cock and hands me the spare keys. Back lock's a bit tight. Turn tacket catches. I try. The lock obeys. The room breathes evenly. I set a fresh bundle of rosemary beside the old. The green sap gives a tiny touch as I pinch it. Light tilts in and lands on the leaf tips, green accents on a staff of gold. I pull the wicker chair into the sun patch and sit. The chair gives one read and settles. Beyond the wall, someone's radio is barely on classical music like mist. I close my eyes for half a beat and hear the 4 notes that open the day biz messages: king, spoon, shift, paper ting, a far bell. A compact score of ordinary peace. The county hearing room is cold as a stainless tray. Frosted glass tube lights, the smell of ink and paper blended into that record scent I've learned to trust. Nora sits beside me. Carter opens his case. On the table, exhibits AF stand in a row. Clips click them tight. The intake officer in metal frames speaks in a tone flat as the tabletop transfer file with unknown IP. Produce your evidence. Nora slides the stack. Irish, HFF, locksmith photo, email logs, ATM, alerts the attempted filing time stamped to match paper trail like a road paved in stone. And this is the revocation already recorded, Carter says, setting the original down with a measured thump. I sign the affidavit. Nib meets paper with a small rue, the line going thick, thin, thick like breath, climbing a hill, then leveling out. The crimper bites rake the raised seal domes under my fingertip. The red stamp lands cop a circle you can't pull back. From the corner, the printer chits out a heavy void sheet, the black ink hard as a steady stare. Opposing counsel is absent. Only a clerk brings a pre-printed cease and desist. Nora smiles thinly. We've desisted for some time. Cease the forgery. The officer nods. His pen taps the report. Tack forged file void. Refer to DA for violations. A church bell outside drops one ting. Right on cue, punctuating the line. Ethan stands at the back, shoulders squared again after several sessions. He submits his repayment plan, thin cover clip, click 30 months. I don't touch his shoulder. I just nod, letting silence carry meaning. This time I acknowledge. His phone, business group appointment, financial literacy, 6 p.m. He looks at me. I'm going. Leaving the building, wind pushes maple leaves across the pavement. Chef, chef. I hold the file close to my chest. The paper has hate like iron just lifted from the forge. Donna waits on the steps with a paper cup of coffee. She hands me half. The lid tacks off half is enough to warm the throat. Far off the church taps 3 notes. Ting, ting, ting. Not to lull anyone, just to announce we've reached another hour of the day. Night in the cottage arrives like ink poured slowly. I switch on the new lamp. Its warm bulb makes a small pool of light on the pine table. Neroli tea breathes up in soft plumes, weaving with rosemary scent into a green gold ribbon. The spoon touches the cup king, the familiar signature on the evening. Phone BZ, Carolyn sends photos. Ray setting a screw to hang the house has lived frame. June printing the 410 sunbeam, placing it in glass beside the cabinet scratch. Another shot the middle stair with a tiny tag, leave the tack, and a little arrow. I laugh, an accidental museum of household sounds. Ethan's text follows notebook page scrolled line, don't borrow to plug silence. I reply, stand first, then walk. No brackets, no exclamation mark. I open the leather notebook. The keep, let go, not coming. Pages now folded back. On a fresh page, I write 4 words, each on its own line, each ending with a round period like 4 warm pebbles dropping to a stream bed. Forgive. Permit. Relearn. Open. Far away, the church lets a chain of fine tint fall into salt-heavy air. I close the bookshelf and run a thumb over the spine's ridge like touching a scar that has healed clean. I switch off the phone. Silence clicks on cash like a switch in the right place. Before drawing the curtain, I lean on the sill. Rosemary bows needle tips, catching a bit of dew, the point shining under the streetlight. I whisper to the room and to myself, tomorrow 4. So a 10. Open the door for the light before I do. Sea wind strokes the roof in a low murmur. The little clock goes tick, tock, steady as a needle sewing old hem shut. I set the spoon down, came the day's last note. Not a period, a comma to pause, breathe, and go on.